Second chances. This is a notion that is as elusive as finding a needle in a haystack. They do not come often, and for most, it can mean as much as a needed lifeline, one that can transform a failed business into a resounding success. My name is Peace Hyde, and this is My Worst Day on Forbes Africa TV. 2011 marked a watershed year for financial markets in Nigeria. Many stakeholders were betting on a return to loan book stability, with AMCON recapitalizing banks by buying up distressed loans. For those who owed these banks, this was the beginning of a long battle to stay afloat. Our next entrepreneur found himself right in the heart of this predicament. Let's find out who he is. Femi Otedola is a Nigerian businessman, entrepreneur and philanthropist with an estimated net worth of $1.11 billion according to Forbes. Mr. Otedola is the controlling shareholder of publicly traded Forbes Oil, an oil marketing and power generation company, originally a Nigerian subsidiary of British Petroleum. Forbes Oil has more than 500 gas stations across the country. Mr. Otedola was the largest private investor of the Nigerian banking industry, as well as founder of FO Properties, which was one of the largest real estate companies in Nigeria. Mr. Otedola, a former president of the Nigerian Chamber of Shipping and immediate past chairman of Transcorp Hilton Hotel, Abuja, was appointed member of the Governing Council of the Nigerian Investment Promotion Council in January 2004. And in December of the same year, he was appointed a member of the committee saddled with the task of fostering business relationship between the Nigerian and South African private sectors. Otedola was also the chief executive and president of C4 Shipping Company Limited, and was at one point Nigeria's largest ship owner after extending control over distribution of diesel products. Otedola was also appointed member of the National Economic Team. Femi Otedola is also well known for his philanthropic work and has made several donations to the Michael Otedola University Scholarship Scheme, which was established in 1985 to give underprivileged students in Lagos State access to higher education. In 2005, Zenon donated 200 million to the scheme's fund. Since its inception, the scheme has benefited approximately 1,000 students. In conjunction with the Lagos State government, Mr. Otedola has further donated 1 billion naira in scholarship funds for students. In 2005, Otedola made a 300 million naira personal donation to the completion of the National Ecumenical Center, Nigeria's primary place of Christian worship in Abuja. Thank you for joining me on another exciting episode of My Worst Day. And today we're joined with the oil tycoon, Mr. Femi Otedola. Welcome to My Worst Day on Forbes Africa TV.
Thank you very much.
Now let's begin by finding out more about the man behind the success story. Who is Femi Otedola?
Thank you very much. Femi Otedola is a guy that has come to this world without knowing how he came into the world, and a guy that believes that you don't compete with destiny.
Wow, okay. It's a very interesting introduction.
Absolutely.
Well, you began your career maintaining your family's printing business. What was that experience like for you?
Quite interesting. When I was young, 6 years old, that was when I set up my first company. I had the entrepreneurial spirit in me, and I remember very well, vividly, that my father then used to work for Mogul, and when he had his friends coming into the house, and I will do the manicure and pedicure, and they'll pay me. I write a receipt for them.
Right.
When I was 6 years old. And when I was 9 years old, I told my father to buy me a briefcase. which he did. And I took to school, and all my schoolmates used to laugh at me. I had this briefcase, and they used to laugh at me.
Why would they laugh at you? What did
Everybody
you
had
do
a
with the
bag,
briefcase?
and I had a briefcase. One of my father's old briefcases.
So talk to us about your early years in the oil business and Xenon. Why did you decide to go into the oil industry when your family have such a heavy political background?
No, I think going into the oil business, it's kind of spiritual.
Right?
Nothing to do with me. I just follow my chart in life, what God has destined my life to be. And my wife and I, we used to lounge. Then I made some money, savings, and I used to keep the Nigerian banks were paying 35% in interest. And I said to myself, it doesn't make sense to take any risk to set up a business. I'll keep the money in banks and live off the interest. So it didn't make sense to me anymore. So she set up the business in the morning, said, darling, I'm going to work. She will leave for work. Then my kids were in school, and someday, or one day, my daughter went to school, and they asked her, what does your father do? Oh, my father sleeps. In the morning, I said, what? She came with me, Papa. They asked me in school, what does my father do? I said, my father sleeps. So I said, no, it's time for me to set up a business. Because I also believe that my gift, because everybody has a gift, the blessing is to discover your gift.
Right.
So, of course, I discovered my gift was in business. I knew that. So I now said to myself that what's the direction in business? So I didn't know what to do. I left it at that. So after my daughter told me that, Papa, in school, they were saying that, what does your papa do? My papa sleeps. I said, no. I need to do something. And of course, considering that my wife always came in the morning, I said, darling, I'm going to work at 7 a.m. She had set up the dry cleaning business, which I had obliged her, given her a loan. Then Nigeria there was no power. The entire country was on diesel, which we call in the oil industry, gas oil. So then the previous government, I had a lot of friends in government, and they used to sell a lot of gas oil to me, which I used to power my house. So this day I came home and there was no power. And I had to move my entire family to Sheraton Hotel. So I called a friend of mine and said, listen, where do you get diesel from? He said there was a company that supplies diesel. So I called up the company and said, well, they will bring the diesel in 2 days. They gave me the price, which was very high, and I paid. 3 days after, of course, they never came. So I was driving from my office in Victoria Land. Then I got on the third mainland and I saw it parked. And I saw the name of the company, and I parked behind it. I said, listen, I paid you guys money for gas oil. When I supply my gas oil, I said, well, in 2 days they'll do it. Fine. I went back home. Of course, I'd kept my family in the town. So when I got home, 2 days after, I was descending the stairs and I saw this truck from the glass. The first house I built, I saw this truck, dirty truck, broken down in my compound. I just built the house and I'm like, come on, this truck, old truck, spoiling my beautiful floor. So I called my security guy. I said, listen, we need to move this truck out. So we moved the truck out and I put old newspapers on the floor. So the truck came back in, parked. There was a pipe from the truck to my tank, discharging the diesel. So and I said to myself, come on, I could do this business. Then, of course, I told Ellen the story of my wife and stuff. And I said, I could do this business, clean it up. So the truck went out, drove out, put the papers on the floor. The truck came in discharge. Then I went to the tank, I looked at it. The truck actually had a meter. It was meant to pump 2,000 liters into the tank. So the truck left. We paid the driver, I left. So now I said to myself, I could do this business. So the following day, I got to my office. I called my manager to call the manager of that trucking business. So the guy came to see me. And I said, listen, you know, your business looks interesting. why didn't you come and work for me? Of course, I'm a very unassuming person, and the guy said, no, I'm sorry. That was it. So I started making inquiries, intelligence about the business. Eventually, I found out that a lot of people buy diesel for their homes. So what I did was I bought a second-hand, not a truck now, a pickup. So I called all my friends and I said, listen, I could supply you guys diesel. So I put the drum on the diesel, sit in front with the driver, and I was delivering diesel to all my friends.
Yourself, you did
And
that.
they were all, of course, and they were all laughing at me. When we get to the club at night, they say, oh, come on, get out. Where's your pickup? Where's your diesel pickup? You know, are you selling diesel to this club? You know, and so on.
Right. And then you went on, obviously, to build a massive empire. But I must ask, in that journey from driving around in a pickup truck to now what you have built, what has been your worst day in business?
Now, what's the business? I have different worst days.
Do you have one particular one that stands out the most for you?
Yeah, of course. When I lost $1 billion,
Right. How did that come about? You
fantastic.
don't tend to lose that every day.
No, exactly. Now, when I set about my journey in business, I had two things in mind. Then, the first one was, where there's a will, you could get wherever you wanted to get to. You have to have the killer instinct. So now I decided that now, where there's a will, there's a way. I put that aside. Second thing, I said to myself, I was not going to have friends and enemies. I was going to have only competitors. So that set out my journey.
How did you go from a company that was turning over millions by the month to a company that literally was
Billions,
losing
actually, billions.
billions?
Yes, every month.
How did you go from that though to actually losing that much? What was the process? What happened? What went wrong?
Oh, and Frank, you know, I told you earlier that you can't compete with destiny.
Yes.
So what's my destiny? To make billions every month and also lose billions. Because God prepares you for a long journey,
Yes.
which of course you're not in control of. Experience is always the best teacher. Okay, well now I'll tell you, coming back to your question, why I lost billions. Now, I didn't have a structure. The banks, I also put the blame to the banks, on the doorstep of the banks. All they were interested in was the profit. They were not interested in sustainability of the business. They were short-sighted. So all they were doing was throwing money at me. So they never advised me that, listen, you start up a business and God blesses the business from selling diesel in drums, 200 liters, to selling 400,000 tons a month. I probably had about 93% of the business on my fingertips. More or less, I had the monopoly of that business. So, in 2008, the oil prices collapsed. I had over 1 million tons of diesel on the ICs, and the price dropped from $146 to $34. That was one leg of it. Then, of course, the currency was devalued. I had a lot of dollar exposure. So that was I lost money.
Now, during this time, you had the biggest debt with Ancom, approximately $1.2 billion. What was going through your mind when you realized you accumulated that much debt?
No, well, I had two options. Either to commit suicide, because the richest man in Germany then did commit suicide.
Did you consider it yourself?
Well, no. I just knew it was a phase I had to go through.
Okay.
You know, you say God prepares you for greater things. So I just knew it was the phase I had to go through.
Right.
And of course, experience is the best teacher, so I had to learn my lessons. So I had two options, commit suicide or weather the storm. And I decided to weather the storm.
Now,
I took the bitter pill.
in the face of all of that loss, just to put it into context, we lost about approximately $480 million when the oil prices crashed.
Now that's $1.2 billion.
More.
Well, with interest.
Right, and then that also added on 258 million through Naira devaluation. And then that was further compounded by $320 million due to
You
interest.
seem to have your facts right.
And then another 160
So
million.
in total, I lost $1.2 billion.
Yes. Now, I mean, that looks like money's going from every angle. How did you manage to recover it and actually sustain your business?
No. After I lost the money, something that struck me was, listen, I had to, my father has always been one of my role models in life and my mentor. And the first thing was I had to protect his name. Mm-hmm. He had a policy, honesty was the best policy. So I had to protect that name. And of course, the integrity. So, what options did I have? Like I said earlier, suicide or weather the storm. And I decided to weather the storm. I now looked at the entire scenario. Of course, I put a blame on the banks for not advising me to have a proper structure when the money was rolling in. So I looked at the numbers, and of course, then, like it happened in America, the president of America did bail out a lot of companies. So the government set up AMCON. So my debt was about $1.2 billion. Mm-hmm. So the banks also had to take a haircut.
Yes.
Of course, good for them for their carelessness and greed. So they took the haircut. So they sold the debt to AMCON for, I think, about $800 million. So they took the shave of about $400 million. So I was left with a debt of $400 million. So I sat with AMCON and said, listen, AMCON did offer me a restructuring. And I insisted, no. I didn't want the restructuring. I wanted to pay the debts and move on and start my life again. So they got reputable firms to value my assets. And then I think I had about 100 and, okay, let me just, in the context of properties, measure it in flats, I think we had about 184 flats, which I gave up. I was the largest investor in Nigeria in the banking sector, which I gave up.
So you gave up a lot of shares in banks?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, the major banks in Nigeria. In fact, I remember vividly that the central bank governor then did call me and say, what's the strategy? You have all these shares in all these banks. Then, of course, Africa Finance Corporation was a major shareholder. I was the chairman of Transcorp Hilton. I was the second largest shareholder in Mogul, Oil Nigeria Limited, second largest shareholder in Chevron Texaco, Visa Phone, several companies. So I gave up everything. They valued everything, and I decided to give up everything.
So by the time you literally relinquished all of that that you had accumulated, what was you left with?
I was left with my house in Ikoyi, my house in Abuja, my office on Walter Carrington, and my 37% stake in African Petroleum.
And how
Yeah.
did you feel at that moment when you've lost over half of everything, all your assets? What was going through your mind? How did you feel?
No, I just had that feeling in me that once God blesses you, He never takes away His blessings. It was just God was just telling me that, listen, you need to learn a lot of things. You take the risks. And of course, I've done the chase. And I've achieved success, recognition. The fulfillment is, I don't feel I'm fulfilled yet now. Until there's no poor person in Africa.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. And what advice would you give to young entrepreneurs that want to follow in your footsteps?
They need to work extremely hard. And with the oil prices today, it simply shows that there is no free lunch anymore. People must work hard, extremely hard, to earn a living.
When you look back now and reflect on that experience, what did you take from it?
An entrepreneur knows what no one knows. That's the secret to success for an entrepreneur. An idea strikes you, which no one knows about. Only you knows about that idea. That was what makes you successful. You know what no one knows. If I was telling my daughter the other day, I said, listen girl, in 50 years, I'll be dead in 50 years, and there are not going to be petrol stations in the world anymore. You're going to have solar power, electric cars, renewable energy. I'm a good student of history, and I always say to my children that my vision is to have an empire that will outlive me. In my quiet moments, I think of people like, of course, I read about them. I never knew. I think of people like Mr. Rolls. That was a Mr. Royce, Mr. Sainsbury, Mr. Cadbury, Mr. Nestle, Mr. Dow, Mr. Jones. Now, I always look at what made these people succeed, or what has made their names outlive them. They were public companies. Eventually, they became public companies, and also they had a vision to set up empires that will outlive them.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Femi Otedola, for joining me on my worst day. You've been absolutely phenomenal. You've heard what our oil magnate has to say about his experiences. Now let's find out from his closest friends what they have to say about this exceptional man.
My name is Chris Adeyemi. I'm an independent director of Otedola PLC.
My name is Akin Femi, and I'm the group CEO of Otedola PLC, Nigeria's foremost integrated energy solutions provider.
I'll say Mr. Otedola is
the chairman of Otedola PLC, and I'll first of all describe him as my leader.
Femi Otedola is my dad, and he's an incredibly
great.
I find him very witty.
Strong individual.
He's a perfectionist.
He's driven, he's hardworking.
And resilient entrepreneur of New Nigeria.
I consider him as somebody who is very, very visionary and has an uncanny ability to identify business opportunities from a potential point of view.
He has a softer side to himself as well. I also know him as a philanthropist.
He's an avid businessman.
He's very clear about his goals in business, sets them, and works hard towards achieving them.
He's always thinks 10 steps ahead, so he's always a great person to go to for advice.
I describe him as somebody who has native intelligence.
He took AP, African Petroleum as it was called then, in 2007, which was a sleeping giant, and woke it from its deep slumber and metamorphed it into Otedola PLC of today, which has become one of the fastest growing companies in Africa, and indeed probably the whole world.
You know, when you're thinking about something from one angle, he's got 10 other angles that he's thought about it from, so he's really intelligent. On the other hand, from business, he's incredibly supportive. He has 3 daughters, so he's had to learn to be a little bit soft with us.
So if you're thinking of somebody, if you want to attend the University of Life, I believe you should speak more to Mr. Otedola. That's my own personal view of it.
He's very concerned about the welfare of the Nigerian youths. This is why he champions the Sir Michael Otedola Scholarship Fund, which is for indigenes of Lagos State. Thousands of Lagosians, young Lagosians, have benefited from this.
He's great. He's a great dad. In his private life, he's funny, hilarious.
Also a very jovial person and very caring.
He's driven in all manners of things. So lately, he's quite into his health and fitness. So he's driving all of us to be a bit more fit and self-conscious, which is great. He's a great father. It sounds biased, but it's true.
There are two types of people in business, the risk takers and the conservatives. The risk takers bet everything they have on an industry and set predefined qualification criteria to ascertain the most profitable venture. Then they jump all in, not knowing whether it will pay off or not. The other does the complete opposite. But the question is, which type of entrepreneur are you? And which will bring you to your worst day in business? My name is Peace Hyde, and this is my worst day on Forbes Africa TV.